What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the next episode of the Legacy Liftoff podcast by DroneAdair. I'm your host, Cody Retlick, and thank you for coming back and listening to the next episode. We've taken a little bit of a break here with the holidays and the new year, and I was sick for a little bit, so scheduling wise was a little tough. We had to push some things back, but we are back with another episode, and I'm very excited today. Grant Fuellenbach is with me from Drone Pros. Grant, thanks for joining me today, man.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for scheduling me in. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. No, it was always good to catch up with you, and obviously when we met back in December again, and just kind of caught up, and good to hear your transition throughout the year and just kind of what you're working on. And obviously I'm like, you know what, we got to have you on for a podcast and just get you on to talk and tell about your story into the industry, because I think that there's some similarities between myself and you, kind of with the brokerage and kind of getting into that and doing some other things. But we can get into a little bit more of that later. As you know from listening to the show in the past, I always like to start at the beginning of kind of how you came into the industry, or your love for drones began. Did it originate early on, or was it a job that kind of started it and sparked it? I know that, I think, from your side, but love to kind of tell your story of like, hey, pre-drone love, how did it kind of all come about, and where you started?
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, I was a pretty nerdy kid. I had like uh, lots of RC cars growing up and things like that. So we were always dabbling in battery operated, toys. But I would say I really got into drones when I lived in Boulder, and that was definitely probably about a decade, maybe more ago. The first one I ever bought, I remember it was just like a Spark, and I got on Facebook Marketplace and didn't really know what it was capable of, but just, for some reason it came through the grapevine. I wasn't even working you know, in construction or any relevant industry. I was working in recruiting software. But always liked, photography and videography. And so when I got my hands on that, I just, it kind of exploded for me. I saw this insane potential for it. And ever since then, yeah, I just can't get my hands off of them.
What year was that?
I want to say it was more than a decade ago, but honestly, it was probably whenever the Spark came out.
Yeah.
Maybe 8 months
Probably
or so.
2017, 2016, maybe.
Yeah,
That came
yeah,
out,
maybe
something like
maybe
that.
2016. That
Maybe
sounds
I could be off on that too, but
yeah,
they didn't release them every 6 months like they do now, right? A
yeah,
new
right,
model.
yeah.
So it was probably one was out for a while before, uh, we got it, or you got it. But
Oh yeah,
yeah, and well, that's awesome, because it is kind of a light bulb moment for a lot of people, of like first time playing with it, first time seeing one use, a video of someone using it, kind of getting those juices flowing and figuring out, it's like, okay, could be something I would like to do, and put my hands on a little bit more. So after you picked it up, were you all in right away, or did you kind of start in? Because I know you worked at Pix 4D, right, for quite some time, but you didn't get there right away, right? Like, what
no,
happened in between you working for this recruiting firm and picking
yeah.
up a drone for the first time?
So I moved out of Boulder and started working for this construction brokerage. And what they were doing is basically like residential construction. So if you needed a dumpster or forklift, or not a forklift, but just like a cat, um, they basically brokered between you as a homeowner or an end client and like the GC or whoever owns that equipment. And it was this beautiful, beautiful business model because they had basically zero overhead, but they just crushed it, right? They like crushed their SEO, crushed local presence. And so we were getting so much inbound traffic for this one simple idea. And I was the whole time, excuse me, the whole time I was working there, I was just racking my head around like, how do I do this? What is like the equivalent of this?
Hmm.
And around that same time period, a friend of mine was doing real estate photography practically full time. And he was just getting into drones. And so we were kind of brainstorming off of, just the potentials of drones, like just based off of my recreational experience with photography. I was like, yeah, I know that this has a ton of promise. And so I started this brokerage right around the time of COVID for luxury real estate. So we pivoted, or we positioned it as a way to basically do FPV shoots for realtors, who at the time when everybody was scared that we don't want strangers in the house, the clients don't want the strangers in the house.
Yep.
So we would have basically the pilots sit outside in a truck or whatever they're driving and fly through a window or open door and really showcase the property that way. And that was at a time when it was like, truly groundbreaking. Like no one had really done it. And so that was that we got a lot of traction that way. Um, and then of course, like did a little bit of commercial work, and then that kind of pivoted me into Pix4D. Um, Oddly enough, there's like this crazy story about Pix where when I started Drone Pros, my dad, I was like visiting him one day, and he's like, you should watch this YouTube video. Like I've been doing a little bit of research, and this company is doing like 3D models for construction and commercial projects, and it was a Pix4D
Mm,
like commercial or trailer, and I was like, that's cool, but it's kind of like it could be a little boring. And then a
right.
year later, I was literally working for that company.
Who would have thought, right? You're
Yeah,
just a video your dad sends you turns into your next journey, right? In the industry, which obviously from that time to now, Pix4D has grown quite rapidly, or quite
yeah,
often over the years. But it's funny because I think during COVID too, like we've had quite a few guests on that FPV, like during COVID, like hey, flying through real estate was such a huge jumping point from them of one gaining some traction in a certain area, really taking it to the next level. From a business standpoint of finding a niche that nobody really was doing at the time, or very
yeah,
few people, um, you know, definitely not oversaturated in your market or any other markets, right? There's probably maybe one or two guys, one or two people in each kind of market that had their hands on it, or at least were thinking about it or doing it successfully. So, it's funny because it is a great thing for a lot of people. COVID, right? It happened. It propelled a lot of people, but it obviously hurt a lot of people.
yeah.
But I do feel like from a drone industry standpoint, it brought a lot of awareness to the industry of just capabilities beyond taking pictures and videos, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So
Turn it from a toy to a tool.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think oftentimes people still today look at it as a toy, but um, education wise, is there's so much out there to show people like how many things you can truly do with it. And I learn something new still almost every week of just a new use. Um, but so after that, you kind of had Drone Pros. Did you like reach out to Pix4D then as far as from like, all right, I want to work for you guys, or how did that hiring come about?
Yeah, it was just kind of like a spontaneous or circumstantial thing. Like I still had, Drone Pros working. I was doing full time on that, and then this one role at Pix just kind of came into my radar, and it was my whole background prior to all this stuff, it's in like sales ops, go to market, and just building out CRMs, like custom development. And so when this role at Pix opened up, I was like, that's perfect. It's like a perfect crossover between my passion and what I'm good at, um, from a corporate sense. And yeah, so um, I don't remember if Chris Cressy reached out or if I just applied, but yeah, it either way, it just kind of, you know,
Yeah, blended
happened
very
for me.
nicely. Yeah,
Yeah,
what was the title at technically?
director of sales ops
Okay.
for sales operations for NORAM. Um,
So yeah, like you said, fits perfect for what you were kind of doing prior and leading into your now newfound love for drones.
yeah,
Was it that was a remote position then, or did you kind of all
it was.
travel
Um,
for it at all, or
yeah, we had like a one of our offices. So Pix is based in Switzerland, but we had an office in Denver, and then most of the NORAM team was based all around the U.S.
yeah,
So yeah, we got to travel quite a bit. Went to Switzerland, France, and then of course like the fun conferences out here.
nice, yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of them now for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, Quite often see a lot of familiar faces at those these days. Um, well, and so how long were you in that role? Were you is it a long
I
term
want to
role
say
or did you?
3 years, like two and some change, maybe three.
And while you were doing that, were you still kind of working on drone pros, or were you still
Um,
flying yourself, or was it more so, hey, I'm all in on pics?
yeah, I kind of I automated or did my best to automate the brokerage for Drone Pros. So I kind of took a step back from it. It was still, working. But during that time, yeah, I was pretty much all in on picks. And I would take the occasional job or the occasional project myself just to, you know, get more hands-on experience with like photogrammetry and just the benefits of lidar. Like
Mm,
even here in Colorado, with there was a big mudslide that happened on I-70 going up towards the mountains, and some of the teams out there, the VDC teams, were using pics, but then also their drones to actually calculate the volumetrics of the material that had slid onto the highway. So then what was cool about that is they could actually use that calculation and determine what type of equipment they needed to move that rock.
mm,
So it saved
that's
them
awesome.
a
Yeah,
lot of
I mean, that's huge cost savings, time planning, right? Knowing exactly what they need, and just again, another very useful use case uh, to help a lot of or to help a company do something that is needed
yeah.
in their industry for sure. Yeah, you've obviously then you said you've been at Pix 4D, for 3 years. You kind of doing the Drone Pros brokerage stuff on the side as well, kind of trying to automate that as best as possible. What was like that next transition point, or like what did you kind of dive more into Drone Pros then, or what made the move on from Pix?
Yeah, it's a good question. And from a career perspective, it was honestly just because a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn and offered me a different role that I would have been pretty dumb to refuse. And so that kind of, it opened up a different door, but it also allowed me to spend more time on just the consultancy and Drone Pros as a whole. Because, when you're working in an industry day in and day out, it's kind of easy to put on blinders. And so when you don't have that, like third party perspective, um, the fly in the wall perspective, I guess. And so that's kind of one thing that I realized was happening for me is, I was spending so much time in picks and like dialing in their processes and sequences and whatnot. And I loved it. I loved the problems it was solving, but it wasn't giving me a bigger picture of the industry. Um, and so when I took that other role, it allowed me to kind of, take a more of a third party perspective. And, just with my background in like go to market and sales ops and whatnot, I quickly realized that, at Pix, most of the people or a large percentage of the people who buy the subscription are, individual or small team DSPs or like visual design construction teams who, they are highly technically trained people, but sometimes struggle with like the actual business side of things, with like, setting up landing pages, putting together email marketing campaigns, building brand presence, putting together invoicing, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what I spent, my whole career at that point doing, is training teams on how to do that. And so that's kind of where I pivoted Drone Pros again into kind of more of a consultancy. So helping those smaller teams, well, not even smaller teams, but just those drone teams really like absorb and adopt, better sales practices.
Yeah, and I think that's great because in any business, you have to see the pivot point and see the understanding of like, all right, how do we take this to the next level? What are we good at, and kind of understanding your your presence in the market of what you're good at experience wise, and how you can really help the people that you know how to help the best, right? And that's, I have pilots all the time ask me, is like, what industry would you get into if you're getting into this industry? It's like, well, what are you good at? Like, what do you enjoy doing? Like, what industry are you in now? How do you speak to your clients today? Do you speak to clients today? What role do you have? Like, there's so many variables to just say, hey, get into this industry. It's like, no. If you know nothing about construction, or you know nothing about insurance, it's probably not a good industry for you unless you take the time to like truly learn and dive into it. And then also have either a partner or someone like yourself that can help on the go to market, and how do we sell to these customers, and how do we access them, and ultimately become partners with those industries, because it's not just I have a drone and I can fly it for this industry. It's like, well, no, there's a lot more to it. And I think obviously kudos to you for seeing that, all right, I need to transition this a little bit more, right? You took a different role, you stepped into a new endeavor, right? Which, as you mentioned, would have been foolish for you to not take, right? Whether that's pay, compensation, educational growth, personal growth, whatever, all of those entail, right, in decision making. But then you saw the pivot point, right? So I know that's kind of like now Drone Pros currently where you're at today, right? Of more so helping individual drone pilots as well as companies with drone teams, and helping them really assess their marketing, go to market, back end systems, setting up CRMs, all of that. I guess, could you want to touch a little bit more on maybe some of the successes and things that you've seen now with that pivot, and how you truly can, help someone out there today maybe that's listening, that on some of these items, to help them take their business to the next level?
I was actually on a call last week with a friend of mine, and he's an engineer, but he is thinking about opening, or he actually did open up his own little drone or service company. Um, and he was initially thinking about getting into construction, as most do with like VDC and whatnot, doing project progression reporting. But then also his network, he has a lot of friends who are in real estate. And so he's like, yeah, I want to focus on real estate. Um, and so he was telling me he's just been cold calling realtors like crazy, and just, I think there's this term, pitch slapping. He's been doing that a lot. And it's like, dude, these guys, realtors, one, yeah, it's a good market to go after because they're the easiest to target.
Yeah.
They always have their mobile number, right on their listing. But think about it through their eyes. Like they're probably super busy trying to get a listing or close a listing, and they get a call from yet another vendor, another photographer, who in their eyes is just the same. Like, focus on a problem that they probably have. And, it again, real estate's easy because, or not easy, but it's a good avenue to start with because you can find problems really quickly. What I mean by that is, like, just go on Zillow and look at listings that haven't closed in the average duration of a closing
Yeah.
in your location. Like in Denver, I think it's 45 days now or something. So look at listings that haven't closed in 45 days. and then like look at the listing photos and even the copy on that listing and say, can I add value here? Can my floor plans or my aerial photos or a video add value to help this thing close?
Yeah.
Don't just say, oh, I do this and I do that, you know?
Right. And that's the thing. I think oftentimes people do is just sell what they do, right? It's like God gave us one mouth and two ears and two eyes for us to watch and listen more than we talk, right? And like
Yeah.
ultimately, that's what you should be doing in any scenario when you're trying to sell into a new industry, right? Is like listen to them first. Like where do you operate most? Like what kind of listings do you do? Do you have a photographer? Like ask more questions than what you talk about yourself, right? I mean that is the one main avenue to win at earning any business, right? Is have them start spilling the beans and
Yeah.
start liking you too, right? And building that rapport because you're not selling probably right away to that point. But, so stuff like that, right? You're helping consulting just kind of look in different ways, but then also set up back end systems because I know today's day and age, I feel like you have to have processes in order to build a business, right? You have to have proposals, ready to go. You have to have invoicing. You have to have contracts, and then kind of be able to automate it. I think that's one of the biggest overlooked things in our industry too. Is how do we use the data we have of all of our contacts and emails and customers and all of that, but better sell and make this process more efficient for clients when you do have them so that it's so easy for them that why wouldn't they continue to work with you, right? So that's a lot as well, right, of what you do now currently of help them kind of set up those systems.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of what we do is like, helping them with their like top of funnel systems. So we have built pretty significant partnerships with a few different tools. Just, again, my experience working like hands in CRMs for more than 12 years now. Like I've dabbled in a lot of different tools, and the ones that we currently work with, I think are best in class, at least for, mid-market, small to mid-market teams. And everybody's like, oh, what about HubSpot or Salesforce? Yeah, those are phenomenal tools. They're amazing, but you have to dedicate time and resources to them.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah. And, HubSpot's really, really cool. It's like pretty intuitive, but again, you need to know like where you're clicking, how to set up a sequence, you know, do you already have your branding set? All of those little things take time.
Mm-hmm.
And like one thing I always say is like you can spend nothing on a CRM or you can spend, $5,000 a month. It just depends on like how much work you want to put into it to make it your own, and what problems you really need solved from that thing.
Right, and I mean, and you can even with HubSpot. I know on our last call just between me and you, we were nerding out on different CRMs and different, lead generators and all kinds of different stuff. It's like you can put all the effort into something, but if it doesn't give you the ROI at the end of the day, then you're probably spinning your wheels and it's not a good business practice for you to continue with anyway. So knowing what's
Yeah.
right for you, but also how to set it up, I think is the biggest thing because if you don't utilize it correctly or if you don't have the right systems in place, you're just wasting your time and your money really from not having it be as efficient as possible. And
Yeah.
I think we talked last time too. We were HubSpot. We're making the transition. We put a lot of work into it, but it just got so expensive. And like, there's just so many tools. It's like, do you really need this? So like boiling it down, right? Is like what's more important to you as a drone user or company that's using drones from a sales side, marketing, customer support, right? Email, whatever it is, kind of evaluate and take a step back and realize those most important areas for you as a business owner.
Yeah. Another note on that, I just thought this one was pretty interesting. if you on Instagram right now, like if you're just scrolling through it and, regardless of what you're into, if it's AI or, drones, obviously, or what have you, but the top producers, what I'm finding, are using, a tool like ManyChat or something like that, that basically is streamlining the way that their lead magnets or their content is getting distributed. So, if it's like, oh, here's a new tool I'm making a video about, or comment below this and you'll get the PDF or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That alone is so ridiculously helpful. And for those companies, and what I'm realizing is like no one in our world in like, UAV, UAS is really doing that. We're just like, we're putting out these amazing videos, these amazing pieces of content, but we're not, like you could add a little bit more value to that instead of just showcasing your skills. You could also get something in return
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I think there's very few out there that are doing it in the way that you're saying, right? With a lead magnet sales funnel page, right? That's giving them some sort of value, whether that's a free downloadable PDF of like your 10 tips or, your 10 best moves with, flying a drone or whatever. 5 tips to start a business, right? I've done a few of those and like it's great for generating not only content but also leads and getting customers in. But I think that's the biggest thing is for anyone out there is like learning who your lead is. Like who is your most valuable lead, right? Because if you're, for me on one side, right, with the drone business with MAP and MKE drones, like for that, my customer is not other drone pilots, right? It's people in construction, it's people in insurance, it's people in real estate, commercial real estate, things like that. Whereas my
Yeah.
content for those lead magnets are way different than DroneAdair content, right? Like that's pilots, that's customers that are using drones on their regular or have pilots internally. So the value or what you're providing them to your customer is completely different. So I think that's a big step too with you and having that consultancy see is like stepping back, creating a customer profile, right? Or a persona, like we talked about before, of visualizing, all right, who is my customer and what do they value the most?
Like just talking about HubSpot, you don't even have to be a HubSpot user, but I found this yesterday. It's called like HubSpot tools. And one of them is literally a buyer persona generator. So you just plug in the age range, the demographics, basically what you know about your ideal customer, and it does the rest. It builds this nice little visual of like, for Gophers, for my other consultancy, it's construction PMs and GCs. And so I called it, Bob the Builder. And it's literally like this killer visual of here's all the challenges that they're probably experiencing, from finding leads to making sure their projects are profitable to scaling their team, finding the right subs, all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool because it's like, that's something that I would laminate, or, I would have it like front and center,
Yeah.
and, make sure that I am paying attention to that.
I mean, and that's something too that you could just like put it as a JPEG, whatever, free download. Doesn't have to like that's obviously not someone's gonna pay for if it's free out there. But if you've specifically niched it down for a specific industry, boom. All right. Hey, are you a construction company that has any of these challenges? Like here's, something that you can provide or just get some information from people, then boom. All right, start the sequence of emailing or reach out to them and just start asking the questions, right? I mean, I would like to touch too. You talked about it a little bit there. You kind of mentioned it just very briefly. I think glancing over it, obviously from drone pros and whatnot. You've kind of transitioned into also an additional consulting from construction side of things. Just being with your background, right? I think it makes sense, right, to have another brand and that is focused, not just then on the drones, but then also the construction side, which tie in together in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch a little bit about on that or
Yeah,
what you're
of
working
course.
with
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, so it's called Go First. It's a really new up and coming, but it's basically doing the same thing that I'm helping with, drone service providers, but for smaller GCs and just construction firms, right? Custom home builders, remodelers, um, design builders, basically helping them get off the ground with their online and offline presence, and then stop relying on, like in that world, Home Advisor and Angie's List are like the big lead generators. But you know, it's hard. It's a hard place to be when you know, your inbound is kind of unpredictable, and your margins are diminished.
Yeah, razor thin.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, just with like the background in VDC too, like it's crazy how few of the clients that I'm working with right now don't know about the value of drones too. It's mind-boggling to me.
Hmm.
Like if spend 3 months and go, or not even that, go get your Part 107 as an owner operator, you can produce so much quality content, or not even that, just like, you know, go and online and hire somebody to help you market your projects. One, because it gives you a killer before and after of your project. And two, you know, it's gorgeous marketing collateral. Like the homeowner or whoever your end client is going to be stoked about that. And because it makes you seem so much more professional than just showing up with your tool belt and saying, I'm going to knock down this wall. And you have no documentation of me knocking down this wall.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think especially in the home building side, that was actually the first, honestly, one of my first clients was like a custom home builder when I first started MAP was like full comprehensive, like, hey, we're going to do before and afters and customer testimonials, like, and show the before and after and the in progress and put that all out there because that's what people want to see. They want to see your craftsmanship, you're easy to work with, your timeliness, whatever it is. Like you can only say so much of that to people and have them believe it. But if they see it and they can understand it and they hear other people saying that, right? I think that's one of the biggest pieces of content for that industry is customer testimonials. They
Yeah.
see it over and over and over again of like people are happy that they chose to build with you.
Oh,
There you go.
absolutely.
Walls are down, and you have a lot less of a hard sell, right? Than someone else that isn't doing that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. It's been fun, like, uh, the house I grew up in, like my dad built the house that I grew up in. So I kind of grew up in, a family of really handy people. Like it's kind of that old school mentality of, dishwashers on the fritz, don't ever throw it out. We're just
Yeah,
going to until, you know, whatever. Um,
yeah, make it
but
work.
yeah, make it work. Exactly. So, getting back into that industry it's really cool. Just one, being able to provide a lot of value to these guys who don't spend much time online and work with their hands, and then two, it's a really honest in the way that it's like laborious,
Yeah,
it's like SaaS and go like so many different industries nowadays aren't very honest with like, oh, it takes me 20 hours to do this type of work, but realistically, I'll just have a bot build it on the back end,
right.
you know?
Yeah, I mean that's changed a lot, obviously, in the last so many years, right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so it's been fun. It's been very educational for sure.
Love it. Well, cool, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to kind of see, your transition from all your journeys and in the industry and, out of it a little bit here and there too with obviously different things, but like obviously appreciate you being on and kind of sharing your story a little bit more, today with us. And, if anybody wants to reach out to you or has any questions or wants to learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way for anybody to reach out to you?
Yeah, honestly, whatever channel you're most comfortable with, just I'm on it. So, if you spend time on LinkedIn, shoot me a DM there. or same thing on Facebook or wherever. I think I'm the only one in the world with this name, so I'm not that hard to find.
Really? You think so? Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
hope so. There's not too many.
You never know, right? It's random tangent on that. Very small, I'll say it. But I thought I was like the only Retlick around, like male that was like, all right, I gotta, keep the name going on after everybody in my immediate family is done or whatever. And I had a
Yeah.
call maybe like 4 months ago from a guy that's like, do you already know any other Retlicks? And I was like, not other than my immediate family. And there was someone up north that had, a kid that was named Retlick still, and the legacy is still there. Apparently, he had some kids, so I'm like, all right, little less pressure. Didn't
Yeah.
know this, but called my grandpa right away, and it was like some distant cousin too that he didn't know. Yeah, he knew him, but didn't know that they had boys. So it's like, all right, it's just wild, right? But you never know. There might be another Grant Fuellenbach out there. You never
Yeah.
know.
I know there's a lot of people with the Fullenbach last name in Germany, but yeah, hopefully no one has Grant.
Yeah,
Or if they
right.
do, they can definitely reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll put all of your links in the show notes and everything as well. Grant, appreciate you, of course, being on again, and everyone that's listening, give us feedback again. We're starting it back up for the second season, so if you have any guests that you think should be on, or you'd like to be on yourself, we'd love to reach out or have you reach out and give us some connections at hello@droneadair.com, or just reach out to us on any social platforms. We appreciate it very much. And yeah, Grant, looking forward to connecting again here soon, but appreciate you being
Absolutely.
on again.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. Good speaking with
Absolutely.
you.
You bet. Safe flying, everybody.